If you're watching this video, you might be interested in going to Japan for a trip, or even have an intention of living or getting settled here for a while. But did you know that some places in Japan are considered undesirable or even dangerous to stay? And what if we can find it out with the names of the places? Japan makes me scared. こんばんは皆さん。Welcome to Japan Makes Me Scared. I'm Junpei, a lover of kaidan, Japanese horror and scary stories. In today's video, we explore Chimei, which means place names in Japanese. Today, we got this agenda to find out how Chimei can reveal hidden truth about the land's history, the risk of natural disasters, or even spiritual beliefs. I think there are several pieces of information about dangerous or haunted places in Japan on the internet, but not many, or even none of them, are talked about associated with place names. So I hope it's going to be something new and exciting for you guys as well. Alright, let's get started. At the beginning of the beginning, let me briefly share what Chimei is. Chimei is composed of two kanjis, Chi and Mei. Chi means land, and Mei means name. So as the word suggests, Chimei is a name for each specific area. Just to talk about the basics, we use kanjis in Japanese as one of the letter forms, and we mainly use kanjis for Chimei as well. So why is Chimei important to understand each land? This is because each kanji used in Chimei has meaning depending on its past history. Let's have one example. Where I'm living is called Yokohama, so we can try to break it down here. Yokohama is a combination of two kanjis, Yoko and Hama. Yoko means side, and Hama means beach. So what do they tell us? Actually, there used to be a long wide beach around this area. Simple as that. Just like that, Chimei is a message from the past that tells us important information about the land. So now you're getting the idea, right? Before diving into the details of kanji place names, let's first discuss the types of areas that are traditionally avoided in Japan. These can generally be divided into two categories here. The first is the areas at risk of disaster. These include regions prone to natural disasters like floods, landslides, earthquakes, and tsunamis. Their geography often reflects vulnerability, and the place names frequently hint at such risks. The second one is areas with a dark history or spiritual significance. Places that were once used for dark purposes, such as execution sites, battlefields, or cemeteries. They carry the weight of history. The place names for these locations can often reveal their unsettling past as well. So these areas are often avoided because of superstitions or their association with death and suffering in general. With these categories in mind, let's explore how kanjis in place names can help us identify such areas. The first ones are related to natural disasters. As I said earlier, Japan faces a variety of natural disasters like earthquakes, floods, landslides, and tsunamis. Many place names hint at the risk associated with those disasters. For instance, Tani, meaning valley, or Sawa, meaning marsh. These names often point to area prone to flooding or landslides. Or Gake, meaning cliff, or Saka, meaning slope. Such names might also indicate regions with a higher risk of landslide or erosion. We can see one example here as well. You remember what happened when the biggest tsunami came to Tohoku in Japan in 2011 and caused a meltdown in the Fukushima nuclear power plant. The area where one of the power plants is located is called Namikura. This Chimei can also be divided into two kanjis, Nami, meaning wave, and Kura, meaning eroded cliffs. So from these kanjis, we can see that this area is at the risk of tsunami, and this information has been delivered from the past. By the way, some kanjis in Chimei are not directly articulated to warn of the risk. They can be more like metaphors or embodiments of disasters, in an indirect way. The most familiar one is Ryu, which means dragon. Yeah, a dragon in the name seems fancy, but it could imply some danger in the area related to water. In Japan, disasters related to water, such as droughts and floods, were thought to be the work of dragons, and areas prone to severe flooding were described as the land where the dragons raged. Because of this background, dragons came to be worshipped as Suijin, the water god, for praying for rain or stopping it to prevent floods. When you visit some shrines, you may see the statues of dragons, and they should be based on this kind of belief. Because of this historical background, the kanji for dragon is sometimes included in names of areas that are prone to flooding. Some places should also be avoided because of their historical or spiritual significance. These areas might have served as burial sites, battlegrounds, or even execution grounds. We see some common kanjis to watch out for here. The first ones are the kanjis of the part of the human body, such as kubi, meaning neck, or mimi, meaning ear. These suggest ties to historical executions or some cruel incidents. For example, there is a mountain pass called Kubikiri Toge in Kagawa Prefecture. Kubikiri means cutting the neck, and this Kubikiri Pass is where criminals were executed by cutting their necks. Actually, there are still scary stories around here, such as people seeing the spirits of samurai or hearing their voices, so there's a possibility that some kind of grudge may still remain. The next kanji to avoid is tsuka, meaning mound, which sometimes indicates Asian burial mounds. I hope that all tsuka are like a grave, well maintained, and regularly offered prayers. But it is said that some of them are simply places where corpses are buried. There is one example in Tokyo, Sasazuka, which is located close to Shibuya and Shinjuku. This is just an urban legend type of thing, but there is a theory that Sasazuka has a station in the metro line, but the station is overground because there are skulls buried in the past months underground. Like that, I'm not sure if this is true or not, but it might be better to avoid place names that include the kanji, tsuka, if you're sensitive to this sort of spiritual matter. While kanji place names can provide valuable clues, it's also important not to rely too much on them. I know it might be like, if you're saying check the kanjis, be careful of this and that kanjis. And why are you saying the opposite now? But of course, there's a reason for that, so let me elaborate on that. There's a fact that many place names in Japan have been changed over time, especially during periods of urban development in the modern era. Since the Meishowa era, around 1960s, Japan's population has begun to increase rapidly, and there was a need to increase the supply of housing land. For that, real estate companies and railway companies were developing former rice fields and selling houses there. Rice fields are known as areas with kind of muddy, unstable land and prone to flooding. Naturally, names of such areas reflect this history in the kanjis used. However, from the perspective of the real estate companies, these names were only a negative factor in terms of branding and selling the properties. So, in order to dispel the negative image of the original names, the company took the approach of changing the names to more attractive and fancy ones. Let's see some examples here. The first one is Jiyugaoka, which is located in Tokyo. This name actually means Freedom Hill, so it sounds super positive, doesn't it? It should give the impression of a serene and historically positive place. And actually, there are fancy shops and cafes now, and that's one of my favorite places as well. However, before it became the trendy neighborhood as it is now, the area was once known as Kuhonbutsu Mae. It referred to a river that used to flow around the area, which was important for the rice fields there. There is another example, which is Tama Plaza, located in Kanagawa Prefecture. I know it might sound a bit weird, But we once had kind of a trend of using foreign words like English or French for the names to be acting cool. As for that, Tama Plaza should have modern and attractive vibes. But this area was originally a part of a larger development that included marshlands and flood-prone zones. Here's another one again. I can't name all of them here, but most of the Bay Areas in Tokyo have also fancy names as well, because they're mainly reclaimed lands that were also built quite recently. So this is not exactly the case of changing the past place names, but they created totally new, so that the Chimei doesn't have meanings rooted in the area's history. And as you can imagine, reclaimed lands are not likely to be resistant to natural disasters like earthquakes, though these places are also areas to be avoided. Anyway, the thing is, the name change helped market area during Japan's post-war housing boom, but it also created confusion in terms of exploring the past through place names. Plus, as I just explained, I wouldn't say maliciously, but some names are changed or made up to kind of hide the negative impression of the past names. So we need to be more careful about that too. Now, the question you might ask is, so how should we find these areas to be avoided? Here are some common ways to do that. The first one is to research the place name. You can just type place names on your browser or check used kanjis in dictionary to understand the meaning and origins. I know it's quite simple, but kind of effective in a way to avoid the potential risk for that matter. Secondly, checking hazard maps is also effective. Many local governments in Japan provide maps highlighting flood zones, earthquake risk, and more. I said earlier that there's a possibility of the place names change to kind of hide the past history, but the map can't fake it. So it can be more trustworthy, isn't it? In my family, my dad is the one who is quite concerned about place names. He makes sure to check the history of the area and whether it is resistant to disasters. And I remember when I was thinking about leaving my parents' house to live on my own and looking for which area to live in, he often told me things like, you should avoid this area because of that history, or don't go there because this area is prone to these disasters. Something like that. While cities are constantly being developed, and those processes should also include disaster prevention, which has significantly reduced risk in many areas. But on the other hand, I've also seen situations where areas that look fancy and have higher rents have become tragic due to disasters such as rain and floods. So I personally think that we should respect the meaning of kanjis that our ancestors left behind in the names of places, at least to some extent. It could be like a treasure information from the past. And also, as I said before, Japan really does have a lot of natural disasters, so it's never too much to be ready for that. And that's my conclusion so far. Anyway, if you like this video, please like or subscribe. That would be a huge motivation for me. And actually, there's a lot more about the tradition of Japanese areas or lands, so if you want more of that, you can also let me know in the comments. Alright, we're getting close to the end, so let me say one thing. Arigatou gozaimasu for watching the video of Japan Makes Me Scared, and sayonara for more Children Fruits next time. Bye!